My name is Abhishek Shah, and I'm the co-founder and group CEO at RSA Global. We are an end-to-end supply chain organization with a focus on technology. We're headquartered in the UAE, and we operate in 4 regions around the world: in the Middle East, East Africa, India, Hong Kong, and China. Across the regions, we have about 600 people and about 500,000 square meters of operating logistics space. So through our journey and our story, we've always realized the object of collaboration was going to be very important to our growth. And through this period, we've done a variety of different partnerships, whether it be joint ventures or acquisitions. And the difference between them is that a joint venture is when 2 parties come together, and it could be a greenfield or and build a new product or service together. And then an acquisition is where you're going into a new product or new market, and then where you're acquiring a stake in a different organization to sort of get a leap into that market going forward. So in my experience when doing joint ventures, it's always because we had a different problem to put together. And you have to ask yourself the question, why do I want to have this partnership? What do I not have today that my partner can bring to the table that's going to help us accelerate our growth and actually bring much more to the market and to our customers that we could take much longer to deliver on our own? An acquisition perspective, the question you have to ask yourself is that if I was to go and set up on my own or try and enter that market on my own, what's the time saving of the market that would happen there? In an acquisition, the due diligence is way more important, primarily because you're going to a running system and a running business, which basically may have many things that are unknown to you, or you have to really dig and understand the drivers of that organization. In a joint venture, normally it could be a clean slate, it could be a brand new greenfield startup, so you're always starting from zero, so it's much easier to govern and run an organization going forward from there. One of the challenges that I faced was always being blinded by the future potential at the inception of a partnership. And what I mean by that is that because of the hunger within you as an entrepreneur of wanting to get the business and knowing if you do this, it's going to be a great opportunity, but that's future down the road, you kind of get blinded by what the current requirements are for you and protecting your organization's interests. So what basically happened was you end up giving away a lot more than you should at the early part of the organization's journey in terms of rights, in terms of relationships, in terms of operational control, when you really could have held on to a bit more of that. And the counter to that is always to think going forward is that what value are you adding at this point in time, and put a dollar value to it. And try add that into the equation when you're discussing with your partners at the table. So often when you're doing these partnerships, business is done between people. And organizations at my size, when I was doing acquisitions, were normally investing or acquiring with individuals. And the individual journey on the other side of the table is pretty important to the story and what is driving them and what's emotionally important to them. And the mistakes that we made was, taking that too much into account of how you actually governed your decision-making process. Business sometimes is just about numbers and the customers and making sure you build it. Emotional intelligence is super important, but you have to know where to draw the line between the two. And so going forward, what I would do again is to make sure that we have that managed in a way, but make sure that the numbers and the objectives of the long-term benefits of the organization take precedent over that. So the other learning that I had was at the start of a partnership, whichever form it may be, there's always a projected ambition that the partners have. And you should always be revisiting that individually as your own organization and as a partnership together, because as the businesses grow, the individual partners have different interests and alignments that will grow depending on what's happening in other forces in their business. So the interests may never be aligned, right? So always ask yourself the question, is this still what we want, and is still what's best for the joint venture or the company, and what really is happening on the other side of the table? Because it doesn't matter how many shareholders you might have, there's many forces at play, which could end up into a very complicated situation going forward. This is what we are going through actually as we speak, and this is something that we're really working on and trying to figure out how to take forward. To summarize about partnerships, I would say there's 3 main things you should consider. Never be blinded by the future potential. Take into account emotions only to a certain amount, and then make sure interests are always aligned going forward and revisit that all very regularly.